The Seahawks offensive playbook is full of overpowered and glitchy plays that you can combine to build an offense that'll drive your opponents crazy. So in this video, we're going over 3 overpowered money plays so that you can learn how to run the most unstoppable offense in Madden 25. And then we'll take these plays into real online head-to-head games to show you that with just these 3 plays, you're going to easily move the ball up and down the field and score touchdowns on every drive. And of course, the full Seattle Seahawks offense ebook, which is full of even more glitchy setups and one-play touchdowns, is available right now on playbookprofessor.gg. Now, the first money play we're looking at is going to be the play whips in the formation gun bunch tight end. And it's really important that we always have our formation flipped so that our bunch receivers are lined up on the wide side of the field. Now, before the snap, the adjustments are to put our outside bunch receiver on a flat route, put our middle bunch receiver on a post, and put our running back on a flat route. And I know that the running back starts on a flat route, but the hot routed flat route is better because it actually gets him a little bit downfield, which makes him a much better threat in the passing game than when he is just on the stock flat route on the play. Now, after the snap, the first read is going to be the running back in the flat. And if your opponent is leaving the flat open, then hit him with a pass lead up, and you've got your easy yards in the flat. Now, the second read is going to be the flat route on the other side of the field, the flat route from our outside bunch receiver. And once again, if your opponent is leaving the flat open on that side, you can hit him with a pass lead up, and that's a free 5, 6, or 7 yards on the opposite sideline. And so you always want to make sure that you force your opponent to respect the flats, and if they're not, go ahead and throw to them for easy yards. Now, the third read is going to be the tight end on the zig. And these zigs, as you can probably guess, are extremely powerful and extremely unique. And these zigs can get open early. As you can see right here, I went ahead and just threw it instantly because it was wide open. But also, there will be times where they get open late. And also, there will be times where your opponent is in man coverage. And as I think everyone should be aware of, zigs are some of the best man-beating routes in the entire game. And so if it ends up being man coverage, let your tight end get through his break, then hit him on the outside for easy yards. Now, the fourth read, of course, is going to be the other zig. And once again, if it's zone coverage, then he can be open. If it's man coverage, he can be open. And let me just get these hot routes on the field. And so our fourth read, once again, gets through his break, open, hit him with an easy possession catch. If it's man coverage, we can go back to cover 1. Once again, the zig is going to get great separation. Now, the only thing I don't love about these zigs is that they run closer together than the play art would indicate. Like they kind of like almost touch sometimes, but that's okay because as long as you're patient, let him get through his break. That's easy yards on the outside. Now, the final read is someone who we're not going to be throwing to that often, but it is going to be the middle bunch receiver on the post. And against cover 4 match, so against cover 4 quarters and cover 4 palms, he is going to be a one-play touchdown. And because of D-line block sheds in practice mode, I'm just going to spy out the 2 defensive tackles. They're not important. What's important is watch the way that the defense plays match coverage. What's going to happen is that this safety right here is eventually going to be responsible for matching onto the post. This safety, it's going to look like he's sitting in a spot where he's going to guard the post, but he's going to stay low. He's not actually going to guard the post. And then we can hit the post for an easy one-play touchdown. So watch what happens right here. That is an easy one-play touchdown over the top. There is nobody guarding that. And this is a low-rated wide receiver. Was it Jaden Darden or something? I don't even know who this guy's name is, but he is not a very good receiver. And he is still going to get crazy separation against man coverage. This time, this is cover 4 palms. We just did cover 4 quarters before. This is cover 4 palms. So slightly different match logic, but we're going to get the same result. We're going to get our guy wide open over the top. And you can see that it's just taking advantage of these weird matching principles where this right side safety doesn't know if he wants to match onto him or not. You can see that this safety, it looks like he's going to match on. Sorry, not right here. I meant number 24 right here. So I guess this is actually the outside cornerback. My bad. But it looks like he's going to match on. But you got to trust he is not going to actually match on. It looks like he's going to, but then he just kind of sits and he just lets him run by. And it's a one-play touchdown. And so whether it's cover 4 quarters or cover 4 palms, this is a touchdown. And some people are really struggling this year against match coverage. And so that's why I wanted to make sure I included this final read in the progression. Even though you won't need it most of the time, if your opponent is in cover 4 palms or cover 4 quarters, this is consistently a one-play touchdown over the top. Now right there, I did freeform it just to be safe, but that is a one-play touchdown. And so if you're struggling against cover 4 match, which is cover 4 palms or cover 4 quarters, then definitely use this setup because you're going to be bombing them over the top for easy scores. Now, the second money play we're looking at is the play Mtn Shock halfback option in the formation gun trips halfback weak. And for this, it's super important that we always have our trips receivers lined up on the wide side of the field. Now, before the snap, the adjustments are to put our inside trips receiver on a streak, put our outside trips receiver on an in route, put our running back on a flat route, and put our solo receiver on a post. Now, after the snap, if your opponent is in something like cover 2, and especially if that cornerback is backed off and they're leaving the flat route open, then we're going to throw to our first read, which is the running back in the flat. And oftentimes your opponent will guard the flat, but we always have to read the flat route first, because if they're not guarding it, then we're going to make them pay for it every single time. Now, the second read is going to be our inside trips receiver on the streak. And oftentimes this one's not going to be open, but we always have to peek it just in case. The times it'll be open the most are if your opponent is in like a base aligned cover 3, which would usually involve like this safety being way over here on the opposite side, and maybe even this linebacker being a little bit more towards the middle. And if that happens, then as you can probably see, it can end up leaving the seam wide open. And so if your opponent ends up leaving the seam wide open, you always got to check it, because a base aligned shaded down cover 3 ends up leaving that seam super open. Now, the third read is going to be our middle trips receiver on the slot fade. And slot fades are super powerful in this game. They're one of my favorite routes this year. And so if we put the defense in a cover 2, as you guys can probably guess, that route is going to be wide open against a cover 2 shell. Basically, the streak is going to pull the deep half inside, and what happens is the slot fade gets left wide open on the outside. Just pass lead that ball outside, and you've got an easy touchdown. Well, what makes slot fades even better is that slot fades absolutely destroy press man coverage. And so I wanted to show you guys press man coverage, and it looks like that defender did not want to press. And so let's actually go ahead and find a different play where we can get some press man coverage. And in fact, this is also a good time to show you how it beats cover 2 man as well. So we can go to nickel 2-4, cover 2 man. But against press man coverage, slot fades, they get this very unique animation where the defender is going to ride the receiver for a second or two. And once you get through that animation, the receiver is going to get multiple yards of separation, and you can freeform this pass over the top and have a one-play touchdown. And so that's exactly what we got right there. And so let's look at the replay real quick so that you can see exactly what's happening. So the press man is going to play this animation right here, and it's this animation every single time. He rides him for a second, and then eventually you're going to get this separation. Now, I think that a freeform is definitely important to make sure that you get this ball out in front of him. And so go into your passing settings and make sure that you are on placement or placement and accuracy. Make sure your pass lead increase is set to small, and that way you can be freeforming this throw and always hitting people over the top if they're running press man coverage. And this will work the same against cover 1 as well if they're running press man coverage, meaning they're jamming you at the line. And so once again, we're going to see he gets through that animation, freeform this over the top, and it looks like my freeform didn't even register, but we had so much separation that it didn't even matter. And I mentioned before that the streak, just like in cover 2, and cover 2 man, it's the same thing. The streak beyond the field will pull that safety inside long enough that you can throw to the slot fade on the outside. So now I have gone and put the defense back into cover 3 so we can keep talking about our read progression. And so the fourth read in the progression is going to be the outside trips receiver on the in route. And against zone coverage, this guy can get wide open for some easy yards over the middle. After our vertical routes, the streak and the slot fade, push those linebackers back, and it opens up space over the middle. And as we've seen in other setups in this ebook as well, in routes can be really good against man coverage. And so if it's man coverage, he can get some really good separation right there. Now, the final read is going to be the solo receiver on the post. And by having the inside trips receiver on the streak, what's going to happen is the streak is going to push back the safety in the middle third, and it's going to allow us to use a pass lead down to hit this post as he crosses over the middle of the field. And so This is a really great throw to come back to late if it feels like everything else is guarded. The streak is going to clear out that safety. So as long as you pass lead it down, it is really easy yards. And right there, he got bumped, but it didn't even matter. There's so much space in the middle. He's still going to be wide open. And of course, against man coverage as well. And it looks like, I have cover 1 right here. And so he's not going to get open against cover 1. But if your opponent was in something like cover 2, we can just, cover 2 man, we can just deep half these guys right here. Then in cover 2 man, of course, the post can usually be a pretty good man-beating route as well. And so once again, we just have to wait for him to make his break. And unfortunately right there, he did not really get separation, but because of just how man coverage is, with a good pass lead, we were still able to throw him open anyway. And so usually Lockett should be getting better separation on that. But even if he doesn't, as you guys can see that even with just a little bit of leverage and a good pass lead, you can still make these throws. And so I love this setup so much because it's extremely versatile. It beats a lot of different coverages, and it's a great base pass play in our gun trips halfback weak formation. Now the third money play we're looking at is the play speed option in the formation gun split twins offset. And while we can run this from either hash, I prefer to have my formation flipped so that the slot receiver is always on the wide side of the field. Now before the snap, there's only one defender that we need to focus on, and that is the pitch key defender, who will have a P icon above his head. This is the defender who will be left unblocked, and so you always have to get the pitch out well before that player gets to the quarterback. Now pitching in Madden 25 is a little bit weird and therefore a little bit risky. Basically what can happen is if you pitch the ball too close to the defender, the ball has a chance of flying backwards for no reason. Even if the ball does not actually contact the defender, if you're too close to him when you pitch the ball, it will still fly backwards. And so that makes this play another one that has a lot of risk associated with it. But if you're willing to have a little bit of fun, or if it's like 4th down or 4th and goal to where if you accidentally turn the ball over, it's not that big of a deal, then speed option can be an awesome play. So if we go ahead and snap this ball, I'm just gonna read the pitch key defender. And in this particular case, he started sliding outside. And this is another important detail that you guys need to know, is that in Madden 25, even if the pitch key slides outside with a power pitch, that pitch key defender will suck inside. And so in most years, when you would see this, you'd be like, oh, I have to keep with the quarterback because the pitch key is sliding outside to guard the running back. However, if you power pitch, which is pressing and holding the pitch button, which is LB or L1, then the defender slides in for a moment anyway, and it allows the pitch to be wide open. And so to be clear, we're reading the pitch key. We're always going to power pitch, which is to press and hold LB or L1, and we have to do it well before the defender gets to us. So this time we snap the ball, and even right there, I would say I maybe cut it a little bit close. And I know you might be saying, oh, well, it looked like you had a ton of space. This year, it's risky. So right there, yeah, I had a little bit of space to work with, but not a ton of space, because if that defender was an extra yard closer, there's a chance that that ball was going to get pitched backwards for a lot of negative yards. And so you just have to be really careful with these pitches. But if you can get the ball out early and you can power pitch it, then the speed option will almost always get you some really nice yards. But that's basically all there is to it, guys. And I strongly recommend that you get into practice mode and practice this a lot, because it is something that takes some getting used to. And I would not run this in a game until you can come into practice mode and run a bunch of successful reps in a row, because if you're running it for the very first time in your online games, it's going to put you at a much higher chance of fumbling the ball. You really want to get this timing down and understanding how early you have to pitch it, because it's different than previous years. I promise it is different than previous years, and it is tougher than in previous years. And so that is definitely my recommendation, is if you're going to run speed option, get lots of practice mode reps in before you run it in your game. But now we're hopping into some online head-to-head games, and I've got drives from 4 different games to show you guys. But starting off, we're using our setup out of the play Mtn Shock HB Option. As we can see, our in route is wide open, and we can rack up some easy yards after the catch. Now on the next play, I'm going to our setup out of whips. And what my opponent is actually going to do is send a really aggressive cover 0 blitz, and I'm just barely able to get the ball out in time, and DK Metcalf on the zig route has absolutely no one ahead of him after he catches the pass, and we are into the end zone for an easy touchdown. And I thought about going for 2, but ultimately I said, let's just kick the extra point and we'll go for 2 and run the speed option a little bit later. Now on the defensive side of the ball, I'm running a loop blitz out of the dime 1-4 formation with either a cover 3 or cover 4 shell behind it on every play. And my opponent was not very comfortable with the loop blitz. Even though he did sometimes pick it up, he was very uncomfortable by it. And on this play on 4th and 11, the loop blitz is going to come in. He does not even see it coming. We get the sack. We get the ball back on the 14-yard line. So on our first play, I'm back to our setup in whips once again. And just like we saw before, we have the zig completely unguarded. It gets us down to the 1-yard line. And so on 1st and goal, we are now going to call speed option. I'm looking at that pitch key, and he actually just slides inside. And so there wasn't even much of a read. I just pitched out to the running back anyway, and we had a ton of space and walked into the end zone. And of course, I'm going to kick the extra point to go up 14-0. On the defensive side, again, cover 4 shell with the loop blitz that my opponent was doing an okay job of picking up, but it was rattling him enough that we still got a user interception, and I went down so we could have a little more space to run some more offense. Back in motion shock halfback option, and this time, once again, the outside trips receiver is going to be wide open on the in route. The in route was doing so much work for us in this game, and really in all the games. I think it's one of the best and probably most underrated routes in the entire setup. We're using that setup once again. I did custom stem the post down by 1 click on the D-pad, but what do you know? The outside trips receiver on the in route is open once again, and that's DK Metcalf into the end zone for another touchdown. And now here on the 2-point conversion, I am going to run speed option. Once again, we're just reading that pitch key, get the ball out with the power pitch, and we are into the end zone. And my opponent quit pretty shortly after that, and so with that, we were on to our next game. Now in game number 2, I actually got an interception on the very first play of the game when I was on defense, and so we're starting on offense around midfield, only 5 seconds in, running motion shock halfback option, and my opponent's actually going to play really great defense, and also my in route never really ran his route for some reason, and we ended up taking a sack, fortunately recovered the fumble. However, we believe in this route combo, and on the very next play, my opponent had switched to a cover 2 invert, and as you guys know, against any cover 2 shell, that slot fade is a 1-play touchdown, and so we are into the end zone. I decided to go for 2 with the speed option. Once again, we're reading that pitch key right there, and when we go ahead and run it, just pitch that ball outside, and we are walking untouched into the end zone once again. Now this opponent ultimately didn't stick around for very long, so moving on to game number 3, here on 3rd and 3, I got stuck on the line with my user very briefly, but I was able to recover and get back for the user interception. So now for the second straight game, we're starting around midfield. We are running whips to start off this drive, and just like we've seen on all these setups, the zig route, it just seems like the zig is always open. I just can't get over how good having double zigs are breaking in opposite directions on this play. Once again, the very next play, the zig is open yet again, and we can take it all the way down to the 9-yard line. And because it's working so well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I did custom stem the post down by 1 click. There was some weird bumping going on in that case because of the user being in there. He kind of affected the routes, but ultimately the zig was still open and we got the touchdown. Now I do go for 2 here, and I got a little too cute with this one. I should have just pitched it sooner. I held onto the ball for way too long and ultimately allowed my opponent's user to come over and make a play. In those cases, I just gotta get rid of the ball. I shouldn't be overthinking it. But that opponent didn't stick around for very long either, and so now we are on to game number 4, and this opponent was actually pretty good. You can see on this very first play we're running whips, he is switch sticking around, and I got a little bit worried for a second that he was actually gonna jump the zig route to the tight end, but we were able to hit him for an easy completion. Now on 1st and 10, my opponent's playing pretty good defense. I should have thrown to the in route underneath. If you guys saw, we had a little bit of separation, but I did not see that he was open. Now on this play, I try to hit him in a window between the 2 defenders. Unfortunately, I threw it a little bit late. However, on 3rd and 10, again, we believe in this route combo, and sure enough, his coverage finally broke, and our streak was open over the top for an easy touchdown. And now it's back to speed option. I need some redemption after I screwed up the previous one. And sure enough, this time we are going to be successful. I do have to take it a little bit to the outside and outrun his user, but we are into the end zone to make it an 8-0 game. So that's how to run just a tiny piece of the most unstoppable offense in Madden 25. And once again, the full Seattle Seahawks offense ebook is live right now on playbookprofessor.gg, and it's full of tons of different glitchy money plays, one-play touchdowns, and dedicated short yardage plays that will have you scoring way more points and winning way more games. And you don't have to take my word for it. Here's what just some of our nearly 1,000 members are saying about how their Madden game was taken to the next level after they joined our community. So if you want to instantly gain access to the best Madden tips and schemes and start winning more games, then we have everything you need at playbookprofessor.gg. And with that, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.